morning and welcome to Truth and Transparency. Today it is Tuesday, September 16th, all day today. And this morning's episode, it's all about the Barks timeline. Welcome in. Do me a favor, at some point you are going to have an opinion about the video. Thumbs it up, thumbs it down. Use the comment section of the video if you're watching on replay. I know that we feature live chat, and feel free to comment with people in the live chat feature. So good morning. Thank you, moderators, for being here. Members, subscribers. For me, the dog barks has a lot to do with the timeline. So we're going to jump right into it. And we're going to be using Dylan and Bethany's text messages, okay, to also show and highlight some important parts. From 4:16 and 51 seconds, that's going to be your first dog bark right there. Boom. Followed by, now think about this, you're sleeping or you're in bed, okay, and interviews would be had, and they canvassed the neighborhood, right? And interviews were had, and Jack D's roommate, he had a girlfriend sleeping over as well, and they heard the dog going berserk, was the term, berserk. And that was between 4 and 4:45. Also, the neighbor on Walenta, when he was interviewed, he was woken up by the dog barks. And he said the clock said, whether it was his phone, whether it was an alarm clock that he was looking at, he said 4:17. So that's noted over here. Now, the people that never mentioned the dog at all in their text messaging and throughout interviews, Bethany and Dylan. Now, I know for myself, when my neighbor's dog goes crazy, she actually has 2 or 3 dogs, and they go crazy and they bark or whatever in the middle of the night. Usually the next morning, I will wake up and my car is either broken into, or I see that another car in the neighborhood has been broken into. And I say broken into, like if we leave like something unlocked, yeah, somebody likes to come and take all of our change. And so then I'll be like, oh, last night at 1 o'clock in the morning when we heard the dog barking, it correlates. Anyways, look at this. 4:16 and 51 seconds, 1 dog bark, 2 barks. 4:17, 1 bark. 4:17 and 9 seconds to 11 seconds, 3 barks. 4:17 and 15 seconds, 1 bark. Continuous barking begins here. 4:17 and 48 seconds, 5 barks, 1 bark, 3, 1, 4. Look at this though. You go all the way down. Remember, the first phone call between Bethany and Dylan happened at 4:19. You have all of these happening. I am now more convinced than ever, okay, that Bethany calls Dylan, okay, because of because of Murphy barking, okay? Look at this. Think about you're sleeping and all of a sudden you're hearing this. I mean, this is like every 4 seconds, every second, okay? 4:17 and 4:18, nothing but all these dog barks, right? We get into the 4:19s. And then here, Bethany calls Dylan. And that's what Dylan is alerted to then to do anything. There is nothing that she does on her phone, Dylan, before Bethany calls her for that first time at 4:19 and some change. She didn't call, Dylan did not call Bethany to say, hey, I saw a masked man in the house yet. Okay. So, also when you listen to the interview of Bethany, whoopsies, she doesn't say, she can't remember when she told, Bethany can't remember when Dylan told her about, and she doesn't even use the word mask. She never says the word mask. She says, I don't know when Dylan told me about the guy in the house, about the man in the house. Okay. So I want you to think about if you were truly sleeping, right? Or in your house and you start hearing the dog bark profusely, like boom, 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 boom. Okay. I know how I am. All right. How is it that there is not a single text message that talks about Murphy barking if Murphy isn't a barker and Murphy is literally going berserk? Okay. How's that possible? That a dog barking in the middle of the night is the most annoying thing ever. Like that's what will wake you up. And here it seems like the dog barking is what woke up Bethany. But now think about Bethany. The last thing that she remembers before going to sleep is that Murphy is supposedly missing, right? And Maddie needs, hey, do you have Murphy? Hey, do you have Murphy? Like, so here at 4:19, Bethany calls Dylan. Hey, do you hear Murphy barking? What's going on? Why is Murphy barking? And then, oh, I just figured that Kaylee was dancing and playing with Murphy. I'm just saying where all of this could like be originating from. Like this whole Dylan thinking that Kaylee's playing with a dog. Okay. But there is no way that you can look at this timeline and say to yourself that Bethany did not call Dylan because of the dog barking. That's exactly why she called, without a doubt. Now, if you have no reason to be suspicious of anything other than you're hearing a dog barking, right? What would you do? Well, she calls Dylan, calls Xana, and then calls Kaylee. And those start in the 4:20 range. And then she tells the police officers that after she calls them, that she's like yelling out their names. And this is when she's also hearing screaming or something like that, right? My question is if you're hearing the dog barking, yes, hey, call, hey. She calls Xana first, though. Then she calls who she thinks isn't even home, right? And maybe that's why she's calling Xana first, is she knows everybody else is home because she's seen them. Here, I'll call Xana because is Xana like trying to get in? Is she locked out of the house? Like, is that why Murphy's barking? You know what I mean? Because I always wondered why she called Xana first. And that's a pretty decent thought process with that of why I would call Xana first. Because I know all my other roommates are home, right? But I never saw Xana come home, right? So I'm going to call. She's also on the same floor as I am. Next, she calls Kaylee, no answer. What she then says is that she was screaming out, and she says that the person in the house would have heard her screaming out. The person in the house would have heard her calling. Okay. And then after she does that, then she calls Bethany back. And now think about this. The dog did not stop barking. Okay. So if you go to 4:20, okay, think about this. You're on the phone for 26 seconds, 46 seconds, something like that. That's all while this is happening. And at 4:20 and 25 seconds, that's when the dog bark, it almost makes it seem like it could be inside the 1112 house because it's so much louder than the other ones. Or now the dog is barking outside. And that's when, what's her name? Dylan is talking about that it seemed like Murphy, it was going away from her. But if you're listening from the camera, it would be sounding like it would be going towards that camera. Okay. Which makes sense with what Dylan was saying, is that Murphy sounded like the barks got, would go away. Right. But here, think about this. You're on the phone and literally a dog is just barking the whole time. A dog that you live with, a dog that you know that does not do that. It'd be like, where is Murphy? Where is Murphy? Where's the dog barking from? I called them. No one's answering. But when all these text messages are going on, you guys, there is not even one mention of the dog barking. Think about that. There is no way that you're not mentioning the dog barking when the dog is barking like this. It's impossible. There's no way that you're not talking about this. It's not, it is abnormal. Okay? It's abnormal. Now, the first time that the dog is now sounding like it could potentially be inside the 1112 house, which I just believe it's outside, and which makes it closer to that camera. Okay. Is I went back and checked. In the interview, Blaker asks Dylan if she thought that Murphy would have chased out the killer. Would have like chased out the killer. Okay. So then go back here to when the dog begins to bark. Okay. .416 and 51 seconds, 416 and 58 seconds, 417 and 5 seconds, 417 and 9 to 11 seconds. Okay. If the killer goes upstairs and it's upstairs at like 410, 411, 412, why isn't Murphy start barking at 410, 411, 412? That's my first debate question. Give me good reasons why the killer isn't barking at 411, 412, 413, 4. If the killer goes inside and goes upstairs first, okay, why isn't the dog barking sooner? My answer to that question is that based on just the dog, let's say the dog is in the house, right? The dog is upstairs. It is in Kaylee's room. Okay. And so it's like, let's just say, for argument's sake here, if the dog is there and Kaylee and Maddie were first, like the killer went to them first. Okay. Why wouldn't Murphy begin to bark earlier? And here's my simple answer to that. It all begins at this time. This is the beginning of it. This is the beginning. Why did they want Maddie's? They took Ethan's Jeep, Ethan's Explorer, and Maddie's infotainment centers. Okay. Why'd they take Maddie's infotainment center? Maddie had a white car. Okay. They, in my opinion, they wanted to see if it was at all possible that Maddie's vehicle could have potentially been drove off in at 420 and whatever seconds. Could that have been the two surviving roommates getting in the vehicle and taking off? Because they're trying to vet their story, right? Why would you be so concerned about Maddie's infotainment center? Not Xana's, not Kaylee's. Ethan's, I get, because you're trying to figure out when they would have got back home. So again, think about this. If the dog does not begin to bark, I want the debate of why would the dog start barking at 4:16 and 51 seconds if the killings began upstairs and began earlier? Now think about this. Now we have the Idaho State Police. They are determined to prove that this happened within a minute and 30 seconds to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, so think about this. At 4:16 and 51 seconds, now I know why they are so obsessed with saying that this could have occurred within a minute and 30 seconds to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And it's because of this, in my opinion. This would be like how I would debate this, is that this is when the killings began. And then they're going to time it up with saying that he then left, got in the vehicle, and drove off at the 4:20 and some change. Okay. And they needed to see if that was possible. And so they did some ridiculous reenactment, but that's the only thing that makes sense as to why they needed to see if this could happen. Because after, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen the video of the girl being stabbed on the train, the subway. Absolutely horrible, unbelievable. But if you want to see the time that it would take for that to occur, to stab somebody that has no idea that you're coming for them, okay? And if you hit certain areas, okay, and if you're going for certain areas, right, then can you stab somebody, and how quickly can it happen and them not even be able to do anything? And people are just so lucky that I'm not covering that case. People on that train, subway, whatever. Everybody's just so in their own world, man. But to interview the people that were there and to ask them, like, you didn't see that girl just got stabbed. She doesn't even realize that she was stabbed like that. She doesn't even realize it and how damaging it was. And then she's just falling over. But the thing that takes me for a loop is with everything with Kaylee. Okay. And then you throw in the Scott Roeder, very good assessments of, hey, this person was not running around frantic. This person was calm, cool, collected. And this person was not the gravity. Like when you start thinking about that, and then you think about the person speeding away so fast, that to me is totally opposite. That's why I think that the driver of the vehicle that's speeding away is no way, shape, or form the person that was the actual committing the crimes. Now, going back to this timing. Again, Ann Taylor has reasons to believe that she got professionals, experts to say that there was basically more than one perpetrator. Everything was happening simultaneously, okay? And something that happened in Xana and Ethan's room is what led to that, like, possibility that somebody's going to feel comfortable getting on the stand, putting their career on the line to go and say this, right? Because it's based off of the evidence, right? So I put that in the mix then too, that means that there's a possibility of that because of the evidence, which has everything to tell you about the transferring of blood. You know, the blood, if you kill one person first, okay, and then you kill the next person, you're transferring the blood from the knife of that first person to the second person, and then you're going to have the mixture of the first and second person on the third person, and then the mixtures of 1, 2, and 3 onto 4. So let's check this out. If there is no mention of any text messages about Murphy barking, right? The question is did the first call between Bethany and Dylan connect? Was there actually a conversation? Because if I say on a phone call, right, hey, and she answers, and I'm Bethany, hey, what's going on? Why is Murphy going crazy? What's going on up there? I just heard I thought I heard like a big boom. Okay, saw freaking firecracker or whatever. Don't know why she's saying this, but whatever, it doesn't matter. But the most important thing is that Bethany is calling at 4:19, not Dylan, Bethany. And if you look at the times of all of this, it's like, it's a no-brainer why she's calling. She's calling because the dog is straight up barking for 2 straight minutes from 4:17 until 4:19 nonstop, right? Bethany calls, boom. They talk or they don't talk. The dog does not stop barking. Okay, so think about this. If the dog is barking and you're yelling out, if you're Dylan, for Kaylee's name, Xana's name, okay, and the dog is barking, wouldn't you be yelling out Murphy's name? That's how you talk to a dog. Murphy, come here. Murphy, where are you? Murphy. That's when I had this aha moment. And I was like, dude, we would always be yelling out the dog's name. Come here, Spanky. Murphy, where are you? Murphy. No mention about yelling out Murphy's name. Now, doesn't that just like mind fuck you? Because it totally mind fucked me when you actually put it on paper and you think about when you're laying in bed, okay? And the dog you own is barking crazy. You're going to be calling out your dog's name, or if they're like right next to you, hey boy, hey girl, what's going on? You know what I mean? And you're also going to know what type of bark it is. But here, these girls are younger, okay? These girls are younger. So keep that in mind. But you hear a dog. So let's say that it's your neighbor, okay? Like for me, I'm always like, what the fuck is this broad doing? She's never around her dog. Come on, man. I loved it when her boyfriend lived there. He was my favorite. He was always doing shit, always taking the dogs for walks. This broad totally caught her cheating on her boyfriend, by the way. But as a good neighbor, stay over there. It's not my business, but totally knew she was somebody else. I just said I would simply, if I was asked, I would tell the truth, but I'm not going to interject. Anyways, her dogs start barking at 1 to midnight, 11:30. Okay. And they're not barking for no reason. Like they're barking for something. Okay. Something's happening. Something's going on. And they continue to bark. And I'm over here wondering, where is the owner and how is this continuing for even like over, when a dog barks for more than like a couple minutes, it feels like forever. It feels like forever. Literally, Murphy was barking nonstop. From what we have on video to 4:29 59 seconds, but even worse, we have all these people that are writing in or being interviewed and saying that the dog was barking until at least 4:45. And then Ann Taylor lets the cat out the bag in one of the motions at the hearings, and she's talking about the dog barked for that's when they're talking about the PCA, and you just made it seem like the dog, like you didn't put any emphasis on the fact of when the dog stopped barking. And that they're saying that somebody would have had to get the dog and bring the dog back in, right? Or get the dog and take the dog somewhere, right? So I think the misconception here is that the dog starts barking when this person is leaving. And that makes absolutely no sense to me. Like at 4:17, the dog starts barking. No. Why is the dog starting to bark when the dog would be like, or when the person would be like leaving? That's nuts to me. Everything that transpired in that house, and the dog's not behind a closed door. Okay. And then Dylan's one of the people that talk about that she's over there talking about Kaylee's blinds are all messed up. Dude, I went back and checked those pictures out. They're not. They're 100% not. So what's interesting is that it seems like Dylan has personal knowledge of her blinds being a certain way, and that would be because you were up there and you maybe opened up the door and you went in and you saw it like that. And I don't know, but that would make sense to me as you're finding out where the dog is that's barking and, hey, what's going on? But if the dog begins to bark at 4:16 and 58 seconds, where it continues on this path of just repetitively like going berserk, why wouldn't that be when it started? Wouldn't that be your argument? Was that going to be the state's? Is that what the state was going to say? Is that this is when it started? Because, and also remember, Dylan saves a contact at 3:51 a.m. So Dylan's up. According to Dylan's story, is that Kaylee was going and getting ready to go to bed. So she was going to get ready and go to bed. And that was at like 4. Okay. And that puts Dylan not knowing that Ethan and Xana are home yet. Because Bethany and Dylan they did not see Ethan and Xana come home. They did not talk to them at all. They have no idea when they got home. And I believe that 150%. 150%. I believe that. And it actually makes sense with why Dylan called Xana first. So if this begins at 4:16 and 51 seconds, to 4 then 20 and 40 seconds, right? That's when you see the car leaving. But they say that 1 minute and 30 to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Oh, I should use pen. I think the state was going to be going the route of what I'm saying here is that this all began here, okay, and that this person was able to get in and out, killing everybody, okay, and that's why the dog starts barking when the dog starts barking, and then the difficult part is to okay, now you're going to be timing up. Ready? Dylan seeing the masked man. Okay. Because what that would mean we all have to agree that Dylan would have had to see the masked man before 4:20 and 42 seconds, which is when the car is driving away, which then everybody's going to have common sense to know that the person had to, leave out, walk, get in the car, and leave. So, for argument's sake, we'll just go with 4:20. Okay. She would have had to see the masked man before then. Her phone records say that this happened after that. Well, Anna, how do you say that? Well, because the 419 call that goes from Bethany to Dylan is at 419 and some change. Then she calls Xana Kaylee. She's calling out their name. Nobody's answering, she says. She's saying this person can hear her. Okay. Never mentions the dog, saying that I don't even know if they heard me because Murphy was barking so loud. I'm trying to yell over Murphy. None of that is coming out. None of that is being said that and I just think that would be a huge, big part of it, is that at some point you're going to have to talk about where you'd be remembering, oh my God, that's right. Murphy was barking this whole time. And I thought that they would see Murphy when Murphy was being walked out by Gunderson. And that would be like a triggering to remember, oh my gosh. And then there's Murphy. Murphy was barking the whole time. And nobody sees Murphy, goes over to Murphy, does anything with Murphy, and nobody mentions, and that's like a trigger to say, oh my God, then there's Murphy. Oh my God, Murphy was barking all night. I'm trying to yell over Murphy's bark. Okay. And nor does she say, or anybody say, that, well, maybe when you were yelling out, it was the killer couldn't hear it because of Murphy's bark. You get what I'm saying? Like, none of that's being talked about. And that's what would be talked about. And that's what common sense would tell you would be talked about. So here, if you break this all down, when Dylan calls back to Bethany and they talk on the phone, and Bethany in her interview, she's like, I don't remember if that's when she told me about the man in the house, never the masked man. The word mask never comes out of Bethany's mouth. Or if it's down when she's in her room. But when she's texting, and when I say she, when Dylan starts texting Bethany and they start using the text messages back and forth, okay, I'm really confused right now. Nobody's answering, right? Never once is Murphy's just barking. Murphy's still barking. Murphy's not, where is Murphy? I can't find Murphy. The fear is already seeming like it's in Dylan to even walk out of her room. Why would you be in fear to walk out of your room if there's nothing to fear? You'd have to be told something to fear or to think that you can't leave your room. Just because the dog is barking, I wouldn't be in fear to walk out of my room, right? But here she opens the door 3 times. And who opens the door 3 times and doesn't leave their room then? Why are you even getting up out of bed if you're just going to open up your door and do nothing? You don't even get out of your bed to do that, you guys. That doesn't make any sense. Unless you're getting up to your door because you're listening, because you're trying to peek out and listen and to hear what's going on. But now that we have this information, right, and we know the exact time that the dog is barking, that is going to drown out a ton of sound. That's all you're going to hear is the dog barking. Now, do we believe that the dog is barking during the attacks? Or do we believe that the dog is barking after everything would be over? And I find it hard to believe that the dog isn't going to bark during the attacks. I find that super hard to believe. The dog would be barking during the attacks, especially if the dog had the ability. The dog's up on the 3rd floor and it starts on the 1st floor, right? And goes down. That means in a sense, the dog is following. Okay. The dog is following the person that's in the house to go downstairs. And no time at all does Is the dog going when Dylan's talking about that she heard the dog going? I thought that it was Kaylee taking the dog upstairs or whatever. When she's saying that she hears that, I've always wondered why it wasn't asked, like, did you hear like the collar? Like, what did you hear the dog's prints going up? Was the dog being carried? Like, what do you mean going up with the dog? And just let her explain that. And then you just hear the dog going up the one time, right? Because think about this. Or do you hear the dog coming down? And remember, she said originally that she heard the dog. It was like the dog coming down. And so if she's going, Kaylee, she's like, yeah, Kaylee went upstairs with the dog. And then she thought that Kaylee was the one coming downstairs with the dog. So what that sounds like to me is that the dog is going up and down the stairs, and you're hearing that because you're hearing the chain, the collar with whatever's on Murphy, and the dog going. You're hearing the dog, but she's talking about Doc Martens, and that these clod hopping Doc Martens. No mention about the dog. You guys, the dog is what woke everybody up here. It's beyond obvious for me with Bethany. Bethany makes that phone call at 4:19 after a minute and some change of the dog barking. But yet there is no mention of the dog in any of the text messages. Like, where is everybody at? Nobody's answering, but the dog's barking. There's zero concern for like the dog. And if you're an animal person, your animals are just as important as your people. Okay. And if you're hearing the dog continuing to bark, and nobody's answering their phones, but they would be in the same situation as you guys. Like, the dog barking is the most annoying thing. It's going to wake you up. And how can anybody sleep through that? When she says, oh, well, just, I just figured they didn't answer because they're sleeping. That is logically flawed for me. Bethany, didn't you wake up because the dog was barking? She tells Blake she doesn't know the order. If it was the firecracker, if it was the flash, if it was the table being moved around, okay? If it was Murphy barked. You guys, Murphy just didn't bark one time. Murphy's continuing to bark all the way until 4:47. I said 4:47. 4:45, but that's so interesting to me because that's the time that Brian's phone turns back on. Just wow. So okay. These extra loud barks, I believe it's because the dog's outside. But there is a potential that, hey, could the neighbor have grabbed Murphy and brought Murphy in, their place, but and the dog's continuing to bark, but that doesn't make any sense. That's why I believe the dog is just outside. That's what makes it louder. Now the question is the dog outside on the top balcony because Kaylee Slider, or is the dog downstairs? Okay, on the outside patio down there. Well, look at this. So when the dog barks are getting louder at 4:20 and 25 seconds, okay, to 4:20 and 43 when the car drives away. We showed you guys yesterday that this car was not on the top of the hill in the back of the house. Okay. And remember, Dylan didn't understand why the person would go out the back and like scaling the walls and shit. And I got me thinking, like, she's saying that because if the person is leaving from the front of the house, why would you go out the back sliding door if you're going to be going and leaving from a car that's in front of the house? Right? That's why it's not registering to her, in my opinion. And I'm thinking to myself, well, how does she know? Why does she think that the killer left from the front of the house in a car? Oh, Brian Rowe, come and suck on my titties, baby. We're talking about logic. But you're welcome to come here and debate the logic. Uncivil law, how are you? I see that you're doing a lot of running or cardio. I love it. I was watching those posts lately. Love it. Brian Rowe, feel free. Ask for the link. So if the dog starts barking at 4:16 and 51 seconds, and the car leaves at 4:20 and 43 seconds, how much time is that? Math. Oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome. We'd love to have you on. Let me know. Would love to have you on to talk timeline if you're interested. So back to the main debate here is if you take the timeline and when the dog begins to bark is at 4:16 and 51 seconds. The question for me to everybody is, do we think that that's at the beginning or why would that be at the end? Bruce, thank you so much. And for me, I find it hard to believe that Murphy would be just barking at the end of something. Brian, actually, I'm interested in knowing how the state, before they took this plea deal, how they were going to present this information to a jury. If you believe it's for other reasons, then your projection, that tells me that that's how your brain works, not how mine works. And if that's the case, you should go check out my lives the past couple days when I'm talking about Sheldon Jeter Jr.'s case and all the work that I've done on that case, and it gets 2,000 views. Why would I continue to do it? Not for clicks and views. I just love it. Here, Brian, I have a great question for you. Why isn't there one text message that talks about the dog? Why isn't one interview that happens on day one? Is there any mention that whether you are a dog person or not a dog person, if you have neighbors that have dogs barking in the middle of the night is the most annoying thing. It would wake you up. And that's what it would. Oh my God, I woke up to the dog barking and would not stop barking. And I couldn't find the dog, or I didn't even attempt to go find the dog. You are merely speculating on what the prosecution would do. Absolutely. I'm speculating logically on I'm asking how would they explain this? And I'm asking everyone to speculate on it. How would you prosecute the case if the dog barking? How would you incorporate that? Because if you don't think that the defense is going to be bringing that up, that's wild. They are. That's a big part of what the defense is saying. The defense is saying that they don't believe that the timeline of when the crime occurred is the timeline. They're also saying that there's more than one perpetrator. And I want to know what experts would ever get up on the stand and be spewing this stuff because they already put it in reports. It was already, put into the courts months to a year earlier. And so clearly this has nothing to do with the plea deal. This has to do with there's experts out there that were going to testify to this strong possibility based on the evidence. But I've had enough from you, Brian. The dog barked as Culver killed the poor dog's owner. And I think anyone, okay, perfect. Thank you. That's what you think. Now, perfect. So then I have a question for you. So this began, thank you. So at 4:16 and 51 seconds, that is when you would believe that it started, the poor dog owner, right, being attacked. And that's when Murphy starts going berserk. So 4:16 and 51 seconds begins the barking. Okay. And so then you would then say that the dog then followed the killer through the house? Or did the dog just remain upstairs barking? Did the dog remain upstairs and then go back into Kaylee's room and that slather was open and was outside in that capacity? But you couldn't argue the fact that Murphy not barking before then is because there's no reason to, right, Brian? If Murphy doesn't start barking until this point, under your logic, right, which I like, is that nothing's happening to Kaylee before this point. Is that correct? Is that how you see things? I'm not coming at you, Brian. So how would it get back into the house? Nobody said the slider was open when the police arrived. Yeah, no, they were saying it was open. The cops said that it was open. And according to Hitler's stance is that the dog walked out and came in the same way the dog left. When Ann Taylor's arguing the fact that somebody would have had to get the dog, put the dog inside, and in some capacity, comfort the dog so the dog would stop barking at 4. Why is the dog continuing to bark? That's the argument. Now, my next question for Brian row me about. Row. It's cool as the slider was open, the dog had free room and was found in Kaylee's room by law enforcement. Yeah. I have no issues with that, right? So let's go back to this, which is you believe then that the attack upstairs began at 4:16 and 51 seconds. Now, do you believe with what we put out yesterday that the car was not in the back of the house, but it was in fact in the front of the house based on the lights? I think that the FBI and the state, they knew this too. But I'm just curious as to why they went with the fact of saying that the car was behind. Why they went with that. Because if we can break it on down with what we have, the FBI having way more advanced tools, they could see the lights and know that the car did not stop in the back and park in the back. And in fact, when the speeding car went away at 4:20 and 42 seconds, that car originated from out in front of the house or right behind the dumpster that's on, King. Not from behind. And that's based on the lights and the reflections off of the houses. So going back to the next question is, there's no mention of the dog barking. And also, in order to see the killer, right, for the masked man in the house, Dylan would have had to see the masked man before 4:20. Before 4:20, 25. Okay. And the reason I'm saying that is because if the killer is in the car that's driving away at 4:20 and 42 seconds. Okay. So ready? Here we go. Is that the text messaging and the calling out the name and opening the door 3 times, and I don't see him until the 4th or 3rd time. You guys, that can't happen before the person that would have been in the car driving away, because they're already gone. Comprende? Dylan is alerted to everything because of the phone call from Bethany at 4:19 and some change. Then Dylan texts Xana and Kaylee and then opens up her door and calls their name out. Okay. Then she closes the door. Okay. Then she says she does it again. And then she's texting, then back with Bethany. Then she calls Bethany as well and says, whatever the phone call happened with 26 seconds at the 4:20 mark and some change. Okay. Then she continues to text. She's continuing to open the door, walk on out, open the door, walk on out, right? Or just at least open it. It is a fact. When I say a fact, it is a timeline fact that none of that could have possibly all occurred before 4:20 and 42 seconds, because she doesn't even begin to do her text messaging about any of that. And that would be her opening and closing the door 3 times, all between 4:20 and 4:25. Like when I say 4:20 and yeah, all of that happens in 20 seconds. But if you listen to what she's saying that from the time that she saw the killer, the person in the house, like how long was it from the time when she heard Kaylee and the dog and all of that stuff to then seeing the masked man? She said it was 10 to 20 minutes. That's in the statement. 10 to 20 minutes is from the time that she heard Kaylee and the dog, which is what? Going to bed, to the time that she saw the masked man. And Bethany never refers to it as the masked man. Bethany refers to it as, I can't remember when she told me about that, but it was never a masked man. It was just the man in the house. And so the whole 10 to 20 minutes, that's a very long time considering what is happening in just the amount, in like a 3-minute period, 4-minute period. I don't think I could ever be saying, giving a 10 to 20 minute time frame when I'd be like, no, this all happened really quick. Like, I woke up to the dog barking. Then Bethany calls me. Okay. But she never even says that she went to sleep. That's the other part that's a myth in this whole thing, is she actually tells the officer that Kaylee was getting ready to go to bed. She's going upstairs with Murphy. It's about 4:00. And because Kaylee's going to bed, I'm going to go to bed. And so she never says that she was sleeping. She says, I'm going to start to go to bed. When I'm starting to go to bed and like in my room, that's when I hear Kaylee scream out that there's someone here. And that's when he asked, the question is, okay, so from the time, how long until the time that Kaylee said that to then seeing the man? And she said 10 to 20 minutes. 10 to 20 minutes. The police are putting the killer in the house for 3 to 4 minutes. So that doesn't even make sense. And what I'm trying to say is that if it happens super quick, I think a natural reaction would be like, I don't know. It all happens so quickly. Like she's saying, you know, this, you know, and that's just not how it's said. And never, ever is anybody mentioning the dog and the barking. Bethany says the dog barking woke her up. And then she called Dylan. Bethany didn't try to call Maddie then, Kaylee then, or Xana then. Bethany begins her phone calls after Dylan says, I can't, like nobody's answering. And I'm really confused. And so Dylan's really confused because of whatever Bethany and her had a conversation about. And is she really confused because the dog's barking and she can't find the dog? But what would be really confusing when she's saying, and that's where Ann Taylor's coming in and saying, you know, the state has it wrong and they're going off of, they're not looking at it in real time. And they want they set it to the grand jury to believe that Dylan was sleeping from 2 to 4. That's not what was happening. And Dylan never said that. But that's how they sold it to the grand jury, is that Dylan went to bed at like 2 and she was awoken by, and everything kind of you see and you read in the PCA, and Ann Taylor's arguing and saying, that's great that you all said that, but that's nothing that's going to be coming out in this trial. And in fact, she was arguing to say that the state knew that. The state had evidence and knew that because of the interviews that Dylan had. So why are you trying to sell it that Dylan was sleeping from 2 to 4? But you know that she said that she wasn't. I mean, we just saw the body cam when she says that she was up, everything was fine. Kaylee's going to bed, so I'm going to bed. Who's a pro burger in here? What are you talking about? Brian, I told you can come on here and we can debate this, okay? But logic is logic. And if something is illogical, so it's considered a red flag if it's not logical. Like, hello. I don't think that makes you anything other than logical. Brian Cover, I think did he not say he was guilty? And did I tell people that you should probably believe that? Why wouldn't you? Oh, Carson. But nobody wants to talk about logic here, which the logical standpoint is why does the dog start barking at 4:16 and 51 seconds and not 4:08, 4:09, 4:10, 4:11, 4:12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It begins 16. And then the logical part is that you couldn't have seen a masked man. This is the same thing in the Eldora case with the Brian Drake case that I've done. It is physically, humanly impossible to have seen this perpetrator if he's in the getaway car after 4:20 and 42 seconds. Would everybody agree to that? It is absolutely impossible because the getaway car is already driving. Okay. And if they had to get into the car, then you want to take off more seconds off of that. And so there's no way you can argue that. And if you want to try to argue that, you're going to try to say, what? The camera time is off? Well, that's what everybody's going off of. That's what the state's going off of. But you were unable, if you were in that house, to see a masked man after 4:20 and 42 seconds. It is absolutely humanly impossible because that's the getaway car, right? And they're already in that and they're driving away. So you would have had to have seen this masked man prior to 4:20 and 42 seconds. If you argue that, then you are illogical and you are that is irrational. So Dylan then has to see the masked man before 4:20 and 42 seconds. And if you don't think that Ann Taylor would be making that argument, you're absolutely out of your mind. Because it's like, how do you miss that argument? So, okay, you have to see the masked man before this time. That means the 3 doors opening and closing have to happen before then. Okay? Is Annie Potts in chat? What time is the exact time of the call that when Dylan calls Bethany back? I'm going to grab something really quick. I'm going to grab my other piece. The logical thing about the dog is that he started barking when someone disturbed him. Logic right there. Teabagging. Love it. I love a good teabag. Absolutely. There you go. Perfect. I believe that 100%. Something was off for the dog to bark, right? 1 million. So here I'm going to pull up. I have it myself. Hold on one second. I'll grab it. Hello from the other side. All right. Back at it. Okay. Sorry, I was just singing away. Hello from the other. Okay, here you go. There you go, Daddy. 419 and 7 seconds. Look at that money. 420. DM calls Xana. DM calls Kaylee. Look at that. 420. That's what I'm saying. 20 seconds. That's what I'm basically saying. That the killer is going to be leaving. Okay. To be running out. Maybe a couple extra seconds. 420 and 28 seconds. DM calls BF for 41 seconds. Okay. Yep. Had to go to the binders. Exactly. Had to go to the binders. Just because I'm proving a point here. And if you don't think this was going to get proven in court, I think everybody's just mistaken. Because it was. And that's just that we have an issue with the timeline. And I'm a timeline person. And so here, if DM calls Bethany and they talk for 41 seconds, beginning at 4:20 and 28 seconds, do you understand that that's basically what I'm saying and pointing all of this out is that phone call correlates, in my opinion, to when the person is actually like leaving to be able to get in the car, right? If you're saying he's back on top, right? Which he's not, but let's go with that. We had Scott Roeder on here saying these gravity droppings, this is not somebody that this happened so quickly that they're all frantic and running around, and the gravity droplets would have been different. And I agree with him. Well, I mean, how do you not agree with when you're looking at the evidence? Like that's what it shows. Now, that was also off of just the minimal stuff that we have. We do not have everything. So if there was other things, but Dylan calling here at 4:20 and 28 seconds. It's almost like she's calling, okay, when the person would have been leaving, like right as they're leaving. Think about that. And if it lasts for 41 seconds, okay, Then you would add 41 seconds to 28. And what do you get? Voila, 421, right? And then Bethany, after this, Bethany at 421, Bethany calls Xana. DM calls Maddie. Bethany calls Ethan through Snapchat, I believe. DM to Bethany. No one is answering. I'm really confused right now. DM, and then this is when she's telling the officers, I texted and I called, and when I'm texting, I'm calling, and I'm also yelling out their names, okay? He would have heard me. He would have heard the phones ringing. He would have heard the phones. He would have heard me yelling. And so then I'm backing all the way up, and I'm saying, okay, well, guess what? That means that DM to Kaylee, what's going on? BF to DM, yeah, dude, what WTF? Xana was wearing all black. I'm freaking out right now. No, it's like a ski mask almost. 4:23 and 42 seconds. The question would be asked, when you wrote this would have been what? Just after you saw it? Because if you actually said it on the phone here, it's not like Bethany asked in a text message and says, what do you mean you saw a mask? Like, it's like they've already talked about it in some capacity. Like, because she's saying, no, it's like so go back to this. The person we know is no longer in the house if they're in the car that drove off at 4:20 and 42 seconds. Because they have to leave the house to then get in the car. And if they're saying that it came from up top, you have to, which it didn't, but hey, we're going to go with their narrative. Then you would have to have left the house by at least this timestamp to make that happen. Like, even if not earlier, to make that happen. But here, in all like reality, with what Dylan's saying, is that she hasn't even begun to. She gets the call from BF. This is what puts everything in motion. Is at 4:19 and 7 seconds. And I'm telling you guys that that's because BF is calling about the dog is barking, and would have just been barking for 2 minutes straight. Then after this call, which I would believe that they would have had to have spoke on that phone conversation, right? Okay, because DM then calls Xana. DM then calls Kaylee. And look at these timestamps, 4:20. And she's doing this, she's saying, as she's opening the door, she's calling their phones, she's calling out to them. And the killer would have heard this, she's saying. Then she goes back into her room, closes the door. Then she's going to have a 41-second phone call. Were you guys whispering? 41 seconds. Then she has to reopen up her door again. Okay. And it isn't until the third time that's when she sees this person, which is putting you way past this and into down here, which the killer has been gone if he's in that car for 2 minutes. So you couldn't have seen a masked man during this time period. And nor did Bethany ever say the words masked man. In her interview, she just said the man to Blaker. We haven't heard the other ones yet. We're getting our hands on those. And what I just find pretty crazy is that if we don't hear it in the interview, that maybe it just wasn't typed up in. Bethany didn't use her phone for anything. We'll see how it worked for Dylan in her interview. But in Bethany's interview, she's never saying that the dog was just barking over and over and over. Like, And it wasn't that it was Dylan calling Bethany to say that she just saw a masked man, which would have had to have happened. This is what I've always said is before this ever happened, in my opinion, Dylan would have had to see the masked man before this phone call ever happened. And then that's why I was like, why is Bethany the one calling Dylan? It should be Dylan calling Bethany to tell her what she just saw. You know what I'm saying? And that's what Ann Taylor is saying, is that the state is selling it the wrong way because Bethany called Dylan. Dylan didn't call Bethany. And if you don't see that, I can't help you with that, but it's the facts. Okay. And then if you go, the reason that she did wake up and call, it's because of all the dog barking. Bark, 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 bark. All the way for 2 straight minutes. Would wake anybody up. 4:18, 1 bark. 4:18 and 15 and 16, 4 barks. 1 bark, 5 bark, 1 bark. 4 barks, 1 bark, 2 bark, 4 barks, 2. I mean, this is nonstop. Still no call yet. Still no call yet. There you go. First call. And you're going to sit here and tell me that that's not about a dog? It is about a dog. That has to be included in that. But then think about this. You're on the phone and you're talking and the dog is continuing to bark, 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 bark while you're talking. Okay, then you hang up. Okay. Then when it starts again with the phone call. So look at this. They were on the phone for 41 seconds, beginning at 4:20 and 28 seconds. That is one. There you go. This is the first time that when you're listening to the barks that you can say, okay, this is way closer to 1112's camera or the camera for the audio. And one could almost think that the dog barking was coming from inside that house. That's how loud it was. Okay. But it means that the dog is outside. 4:20 and 25 seconds. 4:20 and 20 seconds. 4:20 and 20 seconds. That's right here. DM calling Kaylee. Or Xana, DM calling Kaylee then. Calling them. Opening up the door. Yelling out their name. And nobody is saying that I'm opening up the door and I'm also calling for Murphy. I'm trying to yell, figure out, hey, Murphy. Murphy, what's going on? Murphy, where are you? Murphy. Then Dylan and Bethany are on the phone and their phone call for the second one begins at 4:20 and 28 seconds. 4:20 and 28 seconds for 41 seconds. Now, 1 bark, 1 bark, 1 bark, 4 barks, 1 bark, 1 bark, 1 bark. Car leaves. Bark, bark, bark. This is when this would have ended. So during their 41 seconds, the dog is barking. And you're going to sit there and tell me that on that phone call, you're not talking about the fact that the dog is barking? That's absolutely unbelievable. You would never believe that. Tell me that you would not. Be honest to yourself. Would you be saying to the person that you're on the phone with, Murphy won't stop barking, or I can't find Murphy? Why on the earth would she call the dog? What do you mean? Call the dog? Not on the phone, you fucking dipshit. Call out for the dog. Wouldn't you call out for the dog? Wouldn't you go looking for a dog that you live with? Brian, I can now tell that you are a troll, but I want to put that up there. Why on the earth would you ever call out for your dog? I have no idea, Brian, why you would never call out for a dog that continues to fucking bark. I don't know how that's not in any text message that the dog is barking. I know he's just so pissed that Brian spells his name B-R-Y and he wishes his mom would have done that. I get it. Brian clearly likes to lie to himself, and that's totally fine. Dog person, not a dog person. You're wanting to shut your fucking dog up, right? No, Brian's just loving it. He's like, who gives a fuck about a dog? Brian doesn't want none of this debate. But yeah, Brian's here for it. You know what I mean? That's what I love when someone says, "Why are you doing this?" and then they're just here for it. It's like, dude, you're here. You're doing it too. I don't go to people's channels that I don't want to watch or hear or have no interest in the topic. But I love the fact that he could be anywhere and he chooses to be here. The only person I'm laughing at, Brian, is Bill Thompson on why you would ever make a deal with a fucking killer. Okay? But you would do it to save your job. And Bill Thompson did a plea deal to 100% save his job, Ashley Jennings' job. If there's a case out there for the death penalty, this is the case. Why would Idaho ever make a stance to say that we deal with fucking mass killers? That's what we do in Idaho. Are you stupid? Are you high? This is that case. Brian Kohlberger should have, if there's a case out there for the death penalty, this is that case. If you have such a slam dunk like you say, Brian, go win your case. Go show the world that you are not going to come into Idaho and kill people that are sleeping in their houses. No, Bill Thompson and his team violated our rights. And if they were to go to trial, shit would have been exposed about that. The FBI would have been made to look like shit. People would have lost their jobs in that department as well. And it's all like this. All of this can all be saved. And we can save all of our asses by plea deal. None of us lose our jobs. Plea deal. And so no wonder why Steve is royally pissed. You strung us along for 3 years. 3 years. Telling us that, hey, this is going to trial. You need to do this. You cannot blah, 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 blah. Wanting us to do all these right things. Meanwhile, all they done the whole fucking time is lie to the families, do things the most fucked up ways, and then they're all going to get their asses handed to them in that trial. But hey, we can't have that happen. So if we do a plea deal, we can save our jobs. We can save our asses. That is why there's a plea deal. That is why 150 fucking % there was a plea deal. Because why wouldn't you take this to trial? Like Brian Rose says, it's a slam dunk, bitch. This trial needed to happen for everybody to see how great all of this shit is too. How great the FBI and the technology and how they were able to solve this case. How great Othram is, right? How great IGG is, but we're not going to talk about it because why is that again? But IGG wants to take over for being in the front row seat to how we should solve cases. Transparency. A trial is transparent. I don't care if Brian Kober wanted a plea deal. Bill Thompson didn't have to give him one. I don't care if Ann Taylor wanted a plea deal. Bill Thompson didn't have to give him one. I think Steve said it best. Bill Thompson took a plea deal within the first hour of it being presented and accepted. How the fuck do you sleep at night? Wouldn't you need to sleep on something? You've just spent 3 years of your life putting together one of the most comprehensive prosecutions to take this down, take him down, let Idaho know, hey, you don't need to sleep on something. You don't need to think about it. It was just that easy to accept the plea deal. In your moral compass, in your ethical duties, and yeah, right. I have a problem with that. How anybody can say that they could accept the deal and to make it all within an hour, that's crazy to me. But Bill Thompson got the families to divide because Bill Thompson lied about how these students were murdered. These students were not murdered in their sleep. These students didn't suffer. These students suffered. Wouldn't you want to showcase how you did this and technology that you have to deter people from committing crimes? Like, we're going to catch you. We're going to catch you. Exactly, Brian. So why don't you hand Kohlberger his ass in court? Why did Bill Thompson hand him his ass in court? There is no way, if I'm the district attorney, that I make a plea deal with him. It's never happening. I'm going to show the world what a fucking sick fuck this kid is. And if there's any case, whether you believe in the death penalty or not, this is that type of a case. And so as a district attorney, how do I at the last second, when this baby, Brian Kohlberger, wants to make a deal, why am I letting him out? Why am I letting him off the hook? That shouldn't sit right with you, Brian. And it does. It does sit right with you. It shouldn't sit right with you. For me, IGG is in this temporary stage of like, hey, how do we handle this? We're in this wild, wild west. We have these interim policies. For IGG that wants to come in and be using this investigative genetic genealogy, it's a tool. It's an investigative tool. It should be used right off the rip. Why are we only using it to solve cold cases type of thing? In order for you to showcase how amazing it is, you have to use it the right way, right? And you want to show that and how you did use it the right way. So the question is you had an opportunity here where you chose to use it and you guys made the decision to use it. IGG, almost immediately, right? Once you got back a hit on the sheath. But then why, when America and the world has all eyes on this case, would you then make the decision, okay, to not do it the right way? Why would you, again, think about this, when there's no eyes on any of the other cases that could be drug cases or small, no media attention. Here, the world is watching this case, and we're going to go into territory where it's so new. Hey guys, we're going to follow the interim policy. We will eventually get to this person, Okay. We don't need to go into other databases. It's just going to take more time. Okay. But what's a couple months? Okay. What's a couple months? What's a couple months? What's a couple extra week? And it should not even be a question. It should be like, well, yeah, it's going to take however long it's going to take because we're going to do it the right way. We're not going to be violating what if we have to get search warrants, we have to get search warrants to do things. Why aren't we? And you have to get search warrants from the beginning to even like say that you're going to go and implore and to use IGG. There's like a different stages you have to get search warrants. And why wasn't that done? And why have these policies and procedures in place? If you don't think that they matter, then why would you ever make them matter by putting them in? You clearly want people to get search warrants at these different phases. The investigator is supposed to be in on it. The prosecutor is supposed to be in on it. And you're talking during all these steps. If you go and you read the interim policy and see how that all operates, you're going to see that none of it was done the way that you're supposed to do it. But that decision was made to do it that way off the rip, which would have been on 11/20/2022. Why was that decision made like that? 11/22/2020, 11/23, 11/24. And you know what's the crazy part about all of this? Is that during this criminal investigation on 11/13 and 14 and 15, they had Linda Lane and they had 1112 cameras and they had access, meaning Mowry had access to those cameras from the back end like an owner. And they knew all about that there was this white vehicle, right? But yet they knew that Jack Showalter had a black BMW. If the white car is so important that they think that the white car is actually involved versus that the white car just might know something because it's a car that could have potentially, I don't know, been actually taken from the house and drove up out of there because the two survivors got in and left. And then they come back. Or it's somebody else that's in the back neighborhood over there. For them to pursue Jack Showalter, who had a black BMW, all the way up until like they were surveying him December 3rd. Why are you surveying him December 3rd? Well, because people that he was friends with and knew and communicated with, they had white vehicles. Oh, so then you're saying it could have been multiple people. Jack Showalter offered up his DNA, and it wasn't until they had an interview again with him on December 6th. And then on December 7th, they put out, the BOLO for the car to the world, but internally, supposedly on 11/25. Why are you all up in Jack Showalter's ass? Well, because he's hoodie guy. And because look at he's following the girls. He wasn't following the girls. They had the corner club cameras day 2. They had a couple days later on November 17th, they had the cameras where he's walking with the girls to the grub truck. He wasn't, so they know, the police know that Jack Showalter wasn't some guy that was lurking in the background. They were at the club with him. They left with them. They walked down the street with them. They got there, and then they switched and went. Like the girls went off, and he's, going off the other way. But they pursued him knowing that he didn't have a white Honda Elantra. Why? Why, if the white Honda Elantra is everything to the case? And that was going to be Ann Taylor's argument. And it's a strong as fuck argument, don't you think? The cops, you knew when you went and Jack Showalter told them when he was interviewed, I went to Floyd's Cannabis that morning. What do? They go and get the Floyd's Cannabis camera. What do they see at 10:37 a.m.? Jack Showalter's vehicle on that Sunday, which is a BMW black, pulling in and getting himself some weed. They got that camera within days of November 13th. Like days, like just, I think on the 16th. So if the white vehicle is in fact the suspect vehicle, the killer's vehicle, that doesn't make sense that they would then be pursuing, and they knew this from jump. Like when I say from jump, they had both Linda Lane and 112 on the 13th and then on the 15th. Mowry lies about when he got it and has to rewrite a report on November 19th. So they have all of November. They're feeding Immel from the FBI and Rob Hill all the camera footage and breaking all this stuff down. Then they go and get the Ridge Road and the Paradise. And yeah, it's a white vehicle. This is all happening in November. Why are you still pursuing Jack Showalter and putting surveillance on him on December 3rd if you know all of this in the month of November? Why would Jack Showalter be surveyed and follow? Like when I'm talking about, like they're following him. The police in Boise were following him all over. There's a report about it, and they're marking where he's going, who he's meeting with. If you are determined already that vehicle is the suspect vehicle. And remember, there's 7 different charts. That's why Jay from the defense team was like, he's saying that they misidentified the car, first of all. It's a flawed way that they identified it. And then they didn't identify it from the 1112 camera. They identified it from the Ridge Road camera, which then the state lied when they presented that information, making it to sound like to Hitler that they didn't. And then after Hitler ruled, then they say, yeah, that we did. Just wow. Like, wow. After you got the ruling that you needed, then you just come out and say, yeah, we lied. That's how we did make it. But the exhibits showed that because the FBI had their report already, and it said we couldn't make any identification off of the blooming balcony lights. It's right there in black and white. So you go back and you ask yourself, well, why would Jack Showalter be still a person of interest to the point that you got his AT&T timing advance records, you surveyed him, and this is all well past November, the month of November. You knowing that he does not have that car. And there's only one answer. And that's because you were not sold on the fact that car had anything to do with shit, right? Because if you were, then there's no way that Jack Showalter could be your guy. You were trying to figure out who Jack Showalter was kicking it with, who was friends with, who he could potentially, done this with, had somebody pick him up. Like, you have his phone records. He didn't call anybody. Remember back, you have Linda Lane being watched, and supposedly you have Danny Vargas saying, oh, look we have this person on foot walking at 3:50 in the morning, and making it seem like they're walking from where Jack Showalter's apartment is. Okay. And that they don't have that person leaving. And now I know why they're making it seem like they don't have that person leaving, because they're making it seem like that person got into a different car and up and left. But really, if you continue to watch the Linda Lane camera, you see that there's a figure that actually walks back. And then they lie about the SUV woman. So if they believe that Jack Showalter could have got into a different vehicle that wasn't his, that means that they believe that there was a driver that wasn't him. There is no other way around it, logically. That means that they would have believed that the car leaving at 4:20 and 42 seconds had a driver in it and that he got into that car. That's the only way that you can continue to pursue Jack Showalter, because you know that he has a black BMW, and you know that is within 48 hours of the murders, which means that you were saying that there'd be more than one person involved. Brian, I just blew up all your arguments. You're no longer welcome here. Peace. I gave you an opportunity to debate. You don't want to debate. You want to troll. Out. That's the argument. So also the capacity of what you think that car is driving away. It could be a lot of things. But most importantly, they're unable to identify what the vehicle is. And the FBI made that known in their report. Give a shout out here for Biss for Becca. Thank you for being such a badass human. Well, we just rock it over here. Kelly, she turned somebody green. What's up, Kelly? Good to see you in here. Thank you, Lana, for all the hard work. I'm just all about the debates here with the timeline. Does it make sense? Sue, turning people one special person green. Thank you, Sue. Christina, member for 4 months. Thank you, Christine. Esther, what's good? What's good? Good to see you in here, Esther. Angel, rocking that blue wrench, girl. William, look at that. Esther. Biss for Becca. Am I saying that right? Carson. How you doing, Miss Thing? What's good? Leanna, is it possible using groups of dog barks to estimate how many other perpetrators there potentially could have been in the house? We know there's been other blood DNA found. Yeah, that would be another huge argument. I think that listening to it, if it was like unenhanced or whatever, I'm also wondering, isn't it hearsay? Like, so asking somebody, hey, because, okay, this is where I think the catch-22 comes in for Ann Taylor. During this proceeding, I was wondering why she wasn't moving to suppress certain videos, like the Linda Lane video, like 1112, all because of like the way that it was obtained and that Mowry had access from the back end. There was just a lot of things to it. It was broken up really weird. They were talking about that there was an SD card that originally existed. Then that SD card from 1112, poof, gone. There's a lot of mess with it. And then you have to remember the Karen Reed case. Okay. Sometimes you don't want to kick out the evidence because you're going to use it to show something about the investigation and about how ridiculous it is. If you kick out those cameras, right, then you're not able to show how ridiculous Mowry was when he testified in a pretrial hearing. Mowry knowing what he did, and here you write up a report on November 19th, and now all of a sudden you remember that you had the password and the login for the 1112 camera on November 13th, but you wrote reports on November, 14, 15, 16, 17, not acting like you didn't have that camera, acting like you didn't even know it existed in the capacity that you not only had access to, but were able to fucking do anything you wanted to as if you were an owner. And it wasn't until I believe he saw Schneider's report where Schneider is outing and saying, I gave Mowry the password and the login from me getting it on November 13th. I gave it to him on November 13th. And he wrote that in a report. And so he has to then, on November 19th, try to shimmy around that, which is absolutely ridiculous. So I think Ann Taylor, that's why she wasn't suppressing any of this. And she was going to use that to her advantage. One of Ann Taylor's arguments was that it was about that there's no consecutive footage to be able to connect these vehicles where you're just saying like this headlight and that. And I mean, how are you connecting to say that that's the same vehicle? From like the Ridge Road camera. That's where you made this description and this identification of the car to get 7 different charts of vehicles. It wasn't just, hey, this is 100% an Elantra. There was 7 different options. There was 7 different charts. And they just chose the Elantra and went with that on 11/25/2022. And Jay was asking, how did you determine that you were going to go with the Elantra out of the 7 different charts? And Hippler was like, nobody will giving any opinions on anything unless you are an expert. Then you can give your opinions. And I said, well, aren't you going to have to lay the foundation though without an expert on how you obtained all these videos? And because Ann Taylor wasn't stipulating any of that shit. But if you throw out those, I think you would want to use those cameras to your advantage. You'd want to show the court, you'd want to show the jury, in my opinion, that they clearly kept on with Jack Showalter as their person, knowing he had a black BMW. Why? There's only one answer for that. Also, there's multiple unknown DNA in the house. It's male, right? Did Jack Showalter live in the Queen Road apartments? Yeah, he did. You guys, how they were developing probable cause to go into his apartment was absolutely crazy. I can't wait to hear that. Like, I wanted to hear that. Like, the maintenance man, there was a work order in. I mean, dude, go look at the 314 reports that MPD did. Wouldn't you be interviewing the maintenance man to get the work order that was called in? They didn't. How about there is a SUV that's leaving at 4:23 and some change? The state, it's in report, Idaho State Police, it's in report 58, number 5. I asked for an FOIA. I want the video and audio of the recording of the interview at the ISP district office in Jerome. Report 58 is of the girl that owned this SUV that they're saying backed out and left at 4:23. Okay. The problem is that she was working that day from 10 to 6 a.m. from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m. In the notes that they wrote down, they asked her, well, what I believe that they probably asked is, was it possible that you came home at all? And she's like, well, I could have went home to check on my cats. There's one problem with that. Ready? We have the SUV leaving at 4:23. If that's the case, and she came home to check on her cats, where is the SUV arriving before 4:23? And ready for the answer? Ding, ding, ding. That car, according to Linda Lane, was parked at least in that spot from midnight on. So the way they summed it up to try to say that, like, yep, that's that girl's SUV. That is not that girl's SUV. That girl was at work from 10 to 6. If she would have come home to check on her cats, she has to leave work to drive to that location where she lives on and park in that parking spot, get out of her car, go check on her cats, and then get back in the SUV that she's saying that they show her is leaving at 4:23 to say, okay, yeah, that's my car. That's my SUV. That's how it played out. In fact, let me grab you the report. Here it is, report 58. Number 5. And this should be a huge problem for people. I'll make it bigger. On December 2nd, 2022. So again, this is before, they have Jack Showalter here. They're surveying him on December 3rd. On December 2nd, ISP Detective T. Barrett and I met with blank, who lived in blank. Blank was the registered owner of a blank bearing Idaho plates blank. The blank was parked in front of apartment blank. I believe it's apartment 52. Surveillance video footage on November 13th, retrieved from blank, Linda Lane, captured an SUV type vehicle resembling a blank leaving the parking lot of east of blank around 4:24 a.m. and an SUV type vehicle resembling blank returning to the parking spot around 6:30 a.m. Okay. So, were you guys able to see that? There we go. So this is the only problem with this, but this is the logic that's being used and literally wrote in a report, which is unfucking believable. Like, this would have gotten eaten up. This is the logic. This person identified that vehicle as being hers. So you showed this girl, hey, we want you to take a look at this vehicle. Is it you? That means that you would have had to show her this. Interesting. And then this girl said she worked overnights at this location, wherever it is, they blanked it out, from 10 p.m. until 6. Okay. Now, this girl said that she worked the night of November 12th. So that would be starting at 10 p.m. and then in through the night of November 13th. Okay. And she would have had returned home the morning of November 13th around 6:30 and 7 a.m. So my question is did you show her did you show her the SUV of it arriving back at 6:30? Is that what you showed her? Or did you show her the vehicle leaving at 4:24 for her to do this identification? Next, my question is this girl said it was possible she parked in the lot east of blank that morning, but that she usually parked in front of her apartment. Okay, what this means is that where her apartment is, it was probably down in front of where they're saying that Jack Showalter's was, in that isolated building on the Queen Apartments. She lived in front of that, like on Taylor is what I think. And that normally she parked over there, not in the back. Okay. And so ready for this though? This is crazy. This logic is absolutely the reason everything should be questioned. Is that she said it was possible that she parked in the lot east of blank that morning, but that she usually parked in front of her apartment. Blank said it was also possible that she came home during her work shift to check on her cats, but she could not recall. Okay. If you were to come home during your work shift to check on cats, that means that you have to, if you leave for work, okay, if you're leaving for work at 9:30 or 9:45 because you have to be there at 10, let's say 9:30. That means you leave at 9:30. That means if you came back to check on your cats between the 10 and the 6 a.m. shift, you would have had to come back to the apartment, which means there would be this car traveling before the 4:24 a.m. departure. You fuck. Where is the vehicle coming before 4:24, which would be only a little bit of time, right? I can't imagine that you would come back. Oh, I'm gonna go check on my cats at, I don't know, 11:30 in the at night, and stay until 4:24 when you're backing out. Absurd. No. So what you need here is this departure. They're trying to put this departure on this girl. And I said to myself, why do you need it to be that way so bad? Well, it's so obvious, but this departure cannot be this girl because there is no arrival of the SUV to come to check on the cats. You'd have to be arriving, and that SUV was in that parking spot from midnight until 4:24. Midnight. So there's no arguing with it. Linda Lane camera is showing that SUV was parked there. When the cameras start rolling that they have access to beginning at midnight, the SUV is there and it does not move until 4:24 when it leaves, thereby making it impossible for it to be the girl coming to check on her cats. But this is how dense. This is absolute either corruption or incompetence or both. You cannot ever say that SUV belongs to that girl and that she came home to check on her fucking cats, because the SUV would have had to arrive before the departure of 4:24, and it does not. It is there sitting in the same spot from 12 midnight until it departs at 4:24. To even write this in a fucking report is absolutely fucked. There is no argument for that. There is nothing to debate there. The only thing to debate is who's the SUV really belong to, because it's not this broad. So who is it? Who's truly leaving at 4:24? Okay. And why, in the middle of the investigation, think about this. On December 2nd, this is an active investigation, right? And it's just so important that you have no agenda here, right? You would never be assigning that this woman is that SUV. Why would you do that early? December 2nd, what's going on here? This isn't like this happened after the arrest of Brian Kohlberger. This is way before all of that. This is December 2nd. That you already need to assign that this SUV needs to be accounted for. What the hell is wrong with you people? That's what you would show in court, is that this SUV doesn't belong to this girl, and that these possibilities here get blown up easily because it's impossible for the SUV to be hers, because it would need to arrive before 4:24 to check on some cats that then leaves at 4:24. It'd have to arrive before 4:24. Okay. And guess what they can't say? They can't say that this had to have been during when the Linda Lane cameras were down. It's like, no. That's that other camera that focuses on Taylor Street. This other one runs. Okay. So you can't say that. But on December 2nd, they needed an answer for something. For this SUV, they needed an answer for it. And this is where they got that answer. And this answer is wrong. Okay. And so that puts this SUV very much so back in play. Because so think about this. If what's his dick is your dude that you're going after, Jack Showalter, right? When you would actually find out that it's not that girl's SUV, because no, if she came to check on her cats, she would be arriving and then departing. So that can't be it. But if we think that Jack Showalter is the killer here and he could have left in a different vehicle, why couldn't it have been in that vehicle? And so why aren't you interested in truly finding out who ran to that vehicle and got in it? And is like literally pulling right then in front of the house, right? And right at a very, very interesting time, which when you go back to, voila, bitches, this phone is going to die, fuck. Do you know how quickly this is right here? Phone is going to die. She receives that message. Bethany does at 4:24 and 11 seconds. So that means you have to be looking at your phone, right? And as soon as you receive that, come to my room. Send. Run down here. Phone is going to die. Fuck. Doesn't respond. See, this is BF. Run down here. Then DM calls EC. DM to BF. BF to DM. DM outgoing. And the running down is, they say, between 4:24 and 58 seconds and 4:27 11 seconds, by the way. This next part, when they asked this girl, blank knew that 1122 King Road house was a party house. She recalled seeing two men standing outside the closed front door at 5 on November 12th, like the Saturday night. Blank described the men on their phones as if they had been turned away from the house. Like she fucking remembers that. She was interviewed on December 2nd. December 2nd. You drive past that house all the time. But you remember on November 12th that's what you saw at 5 o'clock. And what's interesting is it tells me, okay, so when she goes to work, it tells me that she leaves at 5 for her 6 p.m. shift. That tells me that you got to drive a little bit of a distance. Why would anybody leave at 5 for a work shift at 6 if it was 15 minutes away? You wouldn't, unless you want to get to work 45 minutes early. And then one would just go and get your time card to see if you actually left. Right? But they just write all of this stuff. Like, why are you writing all of this knowing that that's not that girl's car? And on December 2nd, why are you so adamant about we have to have an answer for this? Because we need to shut the fucking door down to this SUV. And why are you on December 2nd? Why would that be something that you need to do versus just figure the truth out? Because this is not the truth. If you're trying to fucking find a killer, This already they know is messing with a narrative. Do you understand that? This on December 2nd, they already know is fucking up a narrative. And this needs to be shut down. And the only narrative I can get that you need to shut down is that it could potentially be one of the you need what narrative would you potentially be shutting down? There has to be an explanation for who this is, right? That's just not it. So go find somebody else that lives over there, you know? And then how you could say that the car that returns at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, how do you know that it's the same car or SUV that left at 4:24? How did you determine that? And the answer on the stand is going to be like, we didn't. We have no. How did you determine that? Well, it left at 4:24 and it looks like it's the same car and it comes back at 6:30 and it parks in the same spot. Okay, so all of that happened from 4:24 to 6:30. Nothing before then that. Like the car was there all the way until 4:24. So how did you determine that this car came home from a work shift? Wouldn't it have to arrive before 4:24 when it leaves? Well, here's the camera footage from midnight to 4:24. Do you see it depart? Or I'm sorry, do you see it arrive? Isn't it there the whole time? Do you understand on the stand how this would look to the jury? And so again, you have no idea whose vehicle this is then. Because logic would tell you that it's not this girl's, right? Because if she's out, did you go to confirm that she was actually in fact working that day from 10 to 6? No. You never went and interviewed her boss? No. So you have no idea if she was even working that day. So if she wasn't working that day, would you strike it odd that she would just be getting up at 4:24 and leaving and then returning at 6:30? And that she lied to you? That she was in fact working? Why would anybody lie? Derek Brown wrote this report. Derek Brown provided handwritten notes and tip information were added to the case file. I would love to see your handwritten notes, Derek Brown, and I'm coming for them. I put in a nice FOIA request for you and Sergeant T. Hopkins and ISP Detective Derek Brown, met individually with 4 employees of. Then you guys did this on November 28th. And then here on December 2nd, ISP Detective Barrett and I noticed that you say that you put it in Jerome. So did you do all this over the phone? Did this person come in? How did you show her the video if you were not in person? You just sent her a clip and said, hey, is this your car? Is this your SUV? Like, how did this all flow? How did this all happen? Blank identified the blank as hers. Blank said so how did that happen? How'd she identify that? If you're working in the Jerome office, which is nowhere near Moscow. I don't know. I think it's kind of important to figure out whose vehicle would be leaving the crime scene and in that area at 4:24 when it supposedly just happened, right? And remember, I've said that if you're going to continue to look at Jack Showalter, knowing that that car that sped away at 420 and some change isn't a black BMW, could that potentially be that in fact, who that be? Remember how they presented to the world on December 7th? The occupant or occupants of this vehicle have critical information. Critical information. Well, how about the occupant of this SUV leaving at 424 has critical information? And then after the 424 vehicle, there is a 429 vehicle. This investigation was absolutely a shit show. And you have nobody, like, it's December 2nd, and that's how you cleared that. Absolutely unbelievable. That's the type of work that was being done. This is what you want me to. But guess what? Brian did say he did it, and I believing him at his word. Okay. I know that there's a man out there named Sheldon Jeter Jr. who would have killed for the type of defense that Brian was getting from Ann Taylor. So DM, outgoing message, Snapchat, 427, 428, 429. I just have one question. In the morning, why did BF never once call any of her roommates? Remember, this is what Ann Taylor had a problem with, is that you guys are trying to make it seem like they were sleeping. So DM to MM, are you up? And then 1129 DM to are you up? And the way that the state sold this to the grand jury was it like this is the first thing that they did when they woke up. Is that they realized, oh my God, our roommates haven't called us back or texted us. And I'm going to text Maddie at 10:30 or 10:23, and I'm going to text Keely at 11:29. But BF doesn't do anything. So going then back to the original question, which is Ann Taylor says to Hippler, Judge didn't have the information that you have when he made the decision to allow certain texts in under the one of the hearsay exception rules, but you do. You have more information than Judge had when the grand jury was impaneled and how that all flowed. So we urge you to look at the entire timeline. Okay. Because the big thing is that they wanted this, the defense's argument is that the state's saying that since DM did not write back in a text form to EG about when he said, yeah, I am driving, and that she never responds back, it's because she went to sleep. Okay. Well, that actually goes against all the interviews because Dylan herself says that when Kaylee and Maddie came home, we all went upstairs into Kaylee's room. Okay. We were all up there. Then I came downstairs. Everything was fine until like 4. Okay. She never once says that I went to sleep and then I woke up to the dog or hearing Kaylee. She was in her room and she was going to bed because Kaylee was going to bed and going upstairs. And so then I want to mention the fact that you're going to sit here and tell me that when this grand jury was impaneled at the end of April of 2023 and the beginning of May of 2023, you're going to sit here and tell me that nobody from the prosecution knew that experts or police officers, detectives went through the roommates' phones, went through their extractions to see that, holy shit, Dylan's up on her phone. There's no way that she's asleep from 2 to 4, so you cannot present it that way. Otherwise, that'd be prosecutorial misconduct. Also, Maddie calling Bethany at 2:53 a.m., right? Bethany says that Maddie walked to her room and asked her if she had Murphy, that Murphy was lost. DM never mentions that at all, anywhere ever, that you're going to sit here and tell me that she only asks Bethany if she knows where the dog is and if the dog is missing, but she's not going to ask that of Dylan. And she says that she does it in person. So nobody asks her is, why did Maddie call Bethany at 2:53 and have a 2-minute and 30-second conversation? What would that have been about? She doesn't say that Bethany called or that Maddie called me to ask me about Murphy. So was this, and all you'd want to do is just refresh their memory, like say, hey, so did Maddie ever tell you that she found Murphy? And if she says no, there's something off there. Did Maddie ever call you? And did you ever talk to her on the phone that night from your room? Because I'm trying to understand it. You know, if there's a call and you were on the phone for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and then maybe she would say, oh my God, yeah, she actually did call. She called and told me that she found Murphy, or she called and told me that she still couldn't find Murphy. I mean, whatever it could have been. But how was there nobody asking about this call? And then it was for 2 minutes and 30 seconds and it was about something, right? And then if DM is creating a new contact in her phone at 3:51, okay, she's not sleeping, right? So you're going to sit here and tell me that during this investigation that nobody was looking through the surviving roommates' extractions on their phones when they got them? This would be in their extractions. You only ask the Barnharts to look, like, why would you have experts from the beginning when you're downloading all these phones and you're getting all these phones from everybody and you're in real time trying to find who killed 4 students? Why wouldn't you be asking the Barnharts to come in November, in December, to help start going through these extractions? Or other people that were there, you have 120 people, none of them were assigned to go through and look at the roommates' phones? You want me to believe that? You want me to fucking believe that? You've lost your fucking mind if you want me to believe that. I don't believe that. No, not at all. And I'm not saying that the Barnharts did it. I don't think that the Barnharts did do it. But I'm saying if you're going to be hiring somebody like the Barnharts when you did in March of 2023, wouldn't you have done something like that, or assigned somebody the tasks of that with the phones that you did download and you had extracted? And all that Maury keeps writing in reports is, when I get to it, I'll do the extraction. He's writing those reports on 11/28. He's writing those reports in December. Don't you think it's pretty important you have to start fact checking the information that you are gathering when you're doing these interviews? You have to start checking to see if what people are telling you is the truth. When do you start doing that in an investigation? there are many phases to an investigation, and preservation is so important. So you want to go and get all the material that you can, so that you don't, so that you have it down the road, you know, like the cameras and the people's phones. And again, you're actually asking people to give you things because you don't really have, how do you get a search warrant to obtain somebody's phone? People could have said like, no, you're not taking my DNA. No, you're not, I'm not giving you my phone for you to download, you know? And it's not because I killed anybody. It's just, there's no way because of the shit that's in my phone that you're getting that. So I personally believe, and this is why Ann Taylor said there was prosecutorial misconduct when she made a filing with everything to do with the, what is it, the prelim, or the, they didn't have the preliminary here, but the grand jury. It's because you were asking questions. Remember, they were trying to get like, hey, we need to get the grand jury proceeding. We need to get the transcripts to see how questions were asked, to see what people said. Okay. You can't ask somebody a question as a prosecutor and know the answer, and that the answer that they then give is, if you then know that to be a lie. And so how can you explain that the prosecutors let the grand jury believe that Dylan was sleeping from 2 to 4? And that's not a lie. That is a huge lie. Dylan never said that. Listen to Dylan's interview with the first responder. Then you're telling me that you don't see this on Dylan's phone. This is in the extraction, and it would just be a line, and it'd give you a timestamp, and it would tell you what Dylan's, like, what her phone is doing. And it would show you that she's saving a contact at 3:51. And then you would know that it was actually Bethany that called Dylan, not Dylan, that called Bethany to start all of this to the grand jury, right? And so therefore it couldn't have been that phone call where Dylan is telling Bethany, hey, I saw a masked man in the house. In fact, Bethany never uses those terms when she's interviewed by Blaker that we just watched. So DM then calls Xana, Kaylee, and she's saying, as she's calling them, she's also calling out their names. She's opening the door, right? Then DM calls Bethany back for 41 seconds, which would literally be right as the person who would be getting in that car and driving away, whether they were driving the car as well or they had somebody else driving it, that's around the same time frame that would have been happening. And if you listen to what Emily Allant said in an interview and Josie, they were saying that Dylan called Bethany after the person left out and closed the door of the sliding door. It's there. It's in her report. But that's what was told, that after the person left out of the sliding door. But now you have to remember when this was said, it was not it was not until after everybody had already been together and talking about things. And then I said to myself, well, that doesn't make any sense. because the text messages haven't even started yet, right? And seeing the masked man hasn't even happened yet, but yet the masked man has already left. No one is answering. I'm really confused right now. Kaylee, again, this is where the yelling out is. Kaylee, what's going on? Now, where's our long break? Okay, here, right here. Look at this break. If you're glued to your phone because of everything you just saw or heard, if you're Bethany, when Dylan texts you at 4:22 and 8 seconds and says no one is answering, then she just shotguns. I'm really confused right now. And Bethany doesn't respond. Then 32 seconds later, she says to Kaylee. Okay, so then DM to Kaylee, what's going on? Bethany still has not wrote her back from the time of a 4:22 and 8 second text message. Okay. Right here, 4:23. So a whole minute and 7 seconds. Dude, a whole minute and 7 seconds is an eternity when you are like waiting for somebody to respond to you and you're like scared or whatever, a minute and 7 seconds. Yeah, dude, WTF. Xana was wearing all black. I'm freaking out right now. No, it's like a ski mask almost. Shut the fuck up. Actually, this is where she says in the interview, she doesn't even know what to say when she says that. When Dylan tells her about this man that she sees, she's like, I didn't even know what to say to that. At 4:20 and 28 seconds would have been the 41-second call. That means that between 4:19 and 7 seconds and 4:20 and 28 seconds, that 1 minute and 19 seconds, 3 door openings, calling people out would have all had to have happened so that she would have seen the masked man before this point. Why, Lana? Because if the person in the car driving away at 4:20 and 42 seconds is having, if that's the killer, this would have all had to happen between 4:19 and 7 seconds and 4:20 and 28 seconds. The 3 openings of the door, yelling out, calling your roommates. And I'm like, okay, well, she calls here, DM, she calls them, and then she's saying that she's physically opening the door and calling them, like calling out their names. So all of that would have had to have happened between 4:19 and 7 seconds and 4:20 and 20 seconds. Any other way is not possible because she cannot see the killer after this point. She just cannot. Because if it's in fact the person that is leaving in that speeding away car, it's just, there's no way around that. And remember, though, Dylan says, let me tell you what happened at 4:00. Why does she think that it all started at 4? And that's, I think, what Aunt Taylor was getting at, is that if this all happened earlier, right, that this is all chatter after the fact. But the reason that Bethany calls is because of the dog. Bethany is hearing a dog just nonstop bark from 4:16 and 52 seconds to 4:19. She's like, finally like, okay, but my question is why are you calling Dylan? why aren't you calling Kaylee? Kaylee owns the dog. I'll tell you why you would call Dylan. You'd call Dylan if you want to bitch about something, to say, God, what is going on? Why is Murphy barking like that? Versus asking Kaylee about the dog, that it's her dog. Also, Maddie just supposedly asked you about an hour ago and told you that the dog is missing. So wouldn't you think to call Maddie and say, hey, did you find the dog? I think the dog might be back. Maybe the dog ran off and now the dog's back and barking and wanting to get in the house. Think about just like logic. And people can say, because at that point you don't think anything's wrong, right? With Bethany's knowledge of, hey, Maddie saying that the dog is missing. Hey, the dog's back. The dog's barking. What the hell's going on? Then after Bethany calls DM, look at, she doesn't call anyone else. That means nobody else gets a phone call. Does Dylan say, I don't know, let me check it out. I have no idea. I'll call you back. I have no idea what's going on. Yeah, Murphy's barking. Like, you're not going to go find the dog? You guys, that makes absolutely no sense. That makes no sense that you're not going to go try to find where this dog is barking at. And DM calls Xana and Kaylee. Then she calls Bethany back. And according to Bethany, she does not remember what the phone call was about. But if you're still on the phone with somebody for 41 seconds, okay, this is where what Dylan is saying is that from the time that she heard Kaylee say there's someone here to then the time that she saw the masked man, I believe that would have had to have been Kaylee saying that there's somebody here has to be after like what? Like when Bethany called you, is that what started everything? Is that what's like started it all? Like, why as a detective are you not going to break down these text messages to understand, or did you begin to text her right when you heard Kaylee say there's someone here? The fuck? Like, how do you not ask these questions? And you may not ask it to them on November 13th, but you're definitely going to be asking these questions after you would get their phone and you would look at their phone. It's the whole reason that you downloaded the phone, so that you can see the phone. And if you have the same information that we all have right now, which you did, which was a dog is barking and begins barking nonstop from 4:16 and 51 seconds all the way until 4, almost 5 o'clock. So with what I just told you now, if you go back and you look at I heard that the breaking news with Mangione, there's 2 charges that were dropped. We'll talk about that. Where does she start talking to Dylan, though?
Can you come here with me, please?
Okay, now.
Break fire 3.
Oh, okay.
All right. And the ambulance on its way. No. For your feet, just blankets. Okay, what's your last name?
See if we could see any of the gloves.
Second floor room.
Second floor.
Okay.
All I heard was I heard go upstairs. Like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep now because she's going upstairs.
And you heard who go upstairs?
Kaylee and the dog Murphy.
And upstairs to the very top?
Oh
Yeah,
my
that's where
god.
her room is.
That just woke me up.
And then all of a sudden, her walking up, I heard her scream, and she ran downstairs because she saw someone. That's what I'm pretty sure she said. Someone's here, and she screamed and just ran downstairs. And I called for her name, but I jumped up and locked my door because I was so scared. And then I heard someone in the bathroom, and I heard her crying, and I heard some guy say that you're going to be okay, I'm going to help you. And I kept calling her name, but she wasn't answering. And then I opened the door for a second, and I saw this guy, and he was not insanely tall, but he's wearing all black and like this mask, which is covering his forehead and his mouth. And I locked the door and I called, and I didn't know what to do.
This was at 4
a.m.
Okay, she says, then I closed my door and then I called Bethany. Okay. So going back to what I just said to everybody is that would mean it's the 4:19 and 7 seconds the 4:20 and 28 seconds is when she called Bethany. But what doesn't make sense is Bethany called her first. Okay. So she's saying where she's starting this at is that I heard Kaylee saying that she was going to bed. And so Kaylee and Murphy are going and walking upstairs. And that when she gets upstairs, that's when she hears that there's somebody here.
Yes. Okay. And so then I just ran down to
you left here?
Yeah, I left my room down to she's that one with the white blinds at the very bottom. Okay. I ran down there and we talked, and we just locked the door. We didn't think anything of it. We're like, nothing happens in Moscow, so we just like tried to go to bed. And then we woke up, and it was weird because none of our roommates were up, and we called all of them. They were not waking up,
and we called all of them, and they were not waking up. That's not what the evidence on the devices show.
I mean, like, this is weird. So I called and come over, and then that's when all this happened.
Who all lives here with you?
I couldn't really see much of him, but I'm almost.
Okay.
I know Ethan. He had this mask that was just over his forehead, because I didn't know what to do. He didn't say anything to me, like, at all. I just shut the door and locked it, because I didn't know what to do. And I think he went out, like, the side door, the sliding door in the kitchen that goes out to the backyard.
Okay.
And then I didn't know anything else, so I called, and I was like, I just need to come downstairs and find you because I don't know where anyone else is. And I called Maddie, I called Dana, I called Kaylee, no one would answer.
Okay. All right. For Zena, do you know how old she is?
She's 20.
Is she in the house?
Yeah, not anymore.
Okay. She's a student at UVI?
Yes.
Not a single mention of Murphy, and that the dog is barking nonstop.
Do you have any contact information for her parents?
That glove is right there. He's a fucking liar.
She's saying this morning around 4, there's a guy, black mask, was in there. She didn't recognize him. She heard her screaming upstairs. She got scared, locked herself in the room, and then the screaming all stopped. She's pretty sure that this masked person went out the back. And it's deceased. They just have 4 people that are unaccounted for right now.
As well. Lock on it because
We don't know.
okay. Who has access to that room?
Okay. CHAPIN.
Yes, knows Hannah's date of birth.
Okay. But pretty sure he was in that room.
I think so. I think it's what told me. I don't know for sure.
All right. And then the 2 additional roommates that aren't here right now,
They're not.
that aren't here with you,
Yeah.
what are their names?
Maddie Mogan, YL 422. Thanks.
Okay. I'm asking a lot of you, so
Sorry,
I appreciate
I'll
you.
say anything.
You're doing very well.
Do you know if the other 2 girls are upstairs or not?
Right now, what we got to do is we got to process this whole thing.
That makes sense. That's fine. That's fine. I understand.
Okay, let's go back. I just want to make sure we're getting everything. So you're sure at about 4 this morning?
Yes, it was 4:10.
You first noticed a guy.
Well, I first noticed Kaylee go upstairs and scream and run downstairs.
So 4 this morning.
See, like I first noticed that, and she's saying it was at 4:10. And just so you know, like nothing in their phones would show you that it would be at 4:10. If you were like look at your phone and you go back at everything and look at like your call log, unless you started deleting things and you deleted things before, like you're like, oh fuck, I didn't, you know what I mean? But to say that this is beginning at 4:10, that's also indicating that it had nothing to do with Bethany calling you.
Upstairs.
Yeah. Yes, it was 4:10.
You first noticed a guy.
Well, I first noticed Kaylee go upstairs and scream and run downstairs.
So 4 this morning, went upstairs
Yeah.
to the way top.
Yes, to her room with Murphy the dog.
How did she notice that? Did you hear that? You physically saw her? Like, I can't believe that's not being asked.
Okay.
And
And
then
you heard Kaylee scream.
I heard her scream and run as fast as she could downstairs, and she said, "Someone's here."
She ran downstairs.
Yes, I could hear. You can hear everything. So I heard her run downstairs really fast. And then I heard Murphy barking a lot.
Okay, there it is.
Okay.
These cops.
And then,
Okay, and then I heard Murphy barking a lot. Thank you. So, 4:16 and 51 seconds, Murphy beginning to bark. She's saying that she heard that first and then Murphy beginning to bark, but that Kaylee said it and then she was running downstairs. And then she's like, okay, could that have been Xana, right? Running downstairs.
And
Don't
I
record
heard her
anything,
go
right?
I think it was the bathroom, and I remember her sobbing, and I just remember hearing this guy's voice that I didn't recognize saying, "You're gonna be okay, I'm gonna help you," but it wasn't like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it wasn't in like a nice way, it was like a weird way, like a weird tone.
You're gonna be okay. I'm gonna help you.
Yeah.
And you didn't hear anything from Kaylee anymore at that
No,
point?
after that I didn't hear anything. So then I kept calling her name. I called on my phone, I called Xana, Maddie, and Kaylee. None of them answered. So then I opened up the door to look, and that's when I saw the guy pass by. He looked at me, but he didn't come towards me or say anything, which was really confusing to me. I don't understand that. And I'm pretty sure he went out the side door. And then I
Well,
called
what?
and said she thought maybe there was a fire or like a firework. We didn't know. She heard this loud noise and there was a light, I guess.
Did you hear like a pop, like a bang?
I don't know. Did you hear a bang?
It's what she heard.
Okay.
That's what she heard. What's
Okay, never mind. You sit there. I didn't hear that. And then I
Well,
called
what?
and said on my phone. I called Xana, Maddie, and Kaylee. None of them answered. So So then I opened up the door to look, and that's when I saw the guy pass by. He looked at me, but he didn't come towards me or say anything, which was really confusing to me. I don't understand that. And I'm pretty sure he went out the side door. And then I called
what?
and said she thought maybe there was a fire or like a firework. We didn't know. She heard this loud noise and there was a light, I guess.
Did you hear like a pop, like a bang?
I don't know. Did you hear a bang?
It's what she heard.
Okay.
That's what she heard.
Okay, never mind. You stay there. I didn't hear that.
Hey, where are you going right now?
I'm just going to pick up my phone.
Okay. Where's your friend live?
Oh man.
To the left, please.
Yeah, I can go.
They totally messed up. Like these cops did not write these down.
Fire or firework.
Mm-hmm. Or
And so
gunshot.
I told her, I don't think I heard anything of that, but I also was kind of in and out of it because I was scared and I was really tired. I didn't think anything about fire or firework.
Mm-hmm. Or
And so
gunshot.
I told her, I don't think I heard anything of that, but I also was kind of in and out of it because I was scared and I was really tired. And that's when I called. And I told her, I need to come to your room because she was the only one that was answering me. So I just ran down there. And for a second I stopped and I saw Xana passed out. And I thought maybe she was just like sleeping or something. I didn't think anything because I was so out of it.
Okay. So if you break on everything that she says with this, then this is the only way that it makes sense. And I think the cops knew this. Bethany calls her to say she heard like this gun pop noise, firecracker, whatever. Okay. The dog though had been barking beginning at 4:16. And if she's hearing Keely go up the stairs with the dog and then coming back down, but she's mistaking Keely for Xana. Okay. And so it's for the thing that doesn't make sense to me is that she's not saying how she's making it seem like it all starts for her when she's hearing Kaylee. And that doesn't make sense with just breaking it down. Then all you have to do is ask her and to say, did you hear Kaylee or the voice that you thought was Kaylee? Was that before Bethany ever called you? Because if she's saying that happened at 4 or 4:10, I think then it makes sense in her mind. What she's saying is that I heard that before Bethany ever even called me. It's like that's what was happening. And then when Bethany calls me, then because she calls her back after she calls people. She did. And she calls Maddie. Okay. But that was actually after she talked to Bethany. Because when she talks to Bethany, basically she wants to be able to come down to her room. You know what I mean? And that's what she just says. That she's calling to say that nobody else is answering and I need to come down to your room. You're the only one that's answering. And when you actually break down if that's possible, okay, DM gets a call from Bethany, but then DM she only calls Xana and she only calls Kaylee. Then DM calls Bethany. So to say like that nobody else is answering, she didn't even call Maddie yet. Bethany calls Xana, but then here DM calls Maddie. And then she never mentions the fact that she's texting and saying any of this stuff. I need to come down to your room. And she says that on the phone call.
Thing. I didn't think anything about fire or firework.
Mm-hmm. Or
and so
gunshot.
I told her, I don't think I heard anything of that, but I also was kind of in and out of it because I was scared and I was really tired. And that's when I called and I told her, I need to come to your room because she was the only one that was answering me. So I just ran down there. And for a second I stopped and I saw Xana passed out. And I thought maybe she was just like sleeping or something. I didn't think anything because I was so out of it. And I went into the room and we just fell asleep. And then we woke up this morning and no one was waking up at all. Like no one was answering, which was really weird because all of us wake up around like 9 or 10. And then I called the girl to come check. And he came here first. And I told him what happened, and then I looked in the room, and he said, they need to get out and call the cops.
Okay. The guy that you saw, it was dark, right? Or were there lights on?
I think there were lights on in the house, I believe. Okay. I don't really know what he looked like, because he had a mask, but he wasn't, like, super tall.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'10". I think it was maybe my height, an inch or two higher or lower. I can't really remember.
Or lower.
So about 6 foot.
I think so. Around there.
How was he built? Fat, skinny, stocky?
More like skinny, but like basketball player kind of skinny. Like not too skinny, but like almost fit skinny in a way. That's what I think. I don't know for sure.
And then the voice, he said, when he said those words, you didn't recognize that voice before.
I didn't recognize him or his voice. I mean, I also couldn't see him, but I didn't recognize that voice at all. Couldn't even cross my mind if that could be.
Did you guys have a party last night too? Or?
Not tonight, but there was and we had like a formal thing beforehand. That was 2 days ago.
Okay. Is there anything that popped out about that event? 20? And if Chapin, you for using that room?
No, we have no idea what it is. No, I didn't know. I had no idea he was here.
Her last name is?
Colonel, but he's here like almost all the time.
There's a male that lives here, and
and then there's Maddie Mogan. Maddie Mogan and
Maddie Mogan.
Yeah.
And who?
Kaylee Goncalves. Ethan.
Right. Describe the guy that you saw.
I don't think he was a little bit taller than me, and almost positive he was wearing a full black outfit, and he had this mask that was just over his forehead and over his mouth, and he didn't say anything to me, like at all. I just shut the door and locked it because I didn't know what to do. And I think he went out like the side door, the sliding door in the kitchen that goes out to the backyard.
Okay.
And then I didn't know anything else, so I called. And I was like, I just need to come downstairs and find you because I don't know where anyone else is. And I called Maddie, I called Dana, I called Kaylee, no one would answer.
Okay. All right. For Zena, do you know how old she is?
She's 20. When I called her, because we were so scared, we're like, can you please come help us? And that's all I saw. Told us not to go in. That man right there. That helped show you around.
They did go in there.
Yeah, and that's when he told us.
You mind just waiting over there?
Yeah.
Very soon. Again. Okay. So you're probably gonna have to retell the story.
That's fine.
All right. What do you remember seeing? What started?
I remember I was in my room and I was trying to go to bed and I heard Kaylee, who ex-girlfriend, who has a dog in her.
Real fast. Which one is your room?
Kaylee.
Which one is your room?
Oh.
I was trying to go to sleep. That to me is so important. I was trying to go to sleep. It's like she didn't wake up out of a sleep. Like that's a lie for anybody out there that's saying that. And the police said that.
What room are you in?
I was trying gloves.
My room.
And your room is cute.
Garbage can.
Next to the stairs. That one.
Okay.
All I heard was I heard go upstairs. Like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep now because she's going upstairs.
And you heard who go upstairs?
Kaylee and the dog Murphy.
Okay, that's what's interesting to me. Like that was her cue to go to bed. Okay, so that's where it's like, how are you mistaking that it's Xana versus Kaylee? Like the way that she's describing it is like, because Kaylee's going to bed, then she's gonna go to bed. You know, like that's this isn't something that you're saying that you woke up out of the dead sleep and this is what you heard, you know? So that's where why I feel the way that I do is because of the way that it's being explained, that because Kaylee is going to bed and going upstairs with the dog, I'm going to go to bed. It wasn't like that. And so I think that would have happened and more time would have had to elapse for the next part.
And upstairs to the very top.
Oh
Yeah,
my
that's where
God.
her room is.
That just woke me up.
And then all of a sudden I heard her walking up.
When she says, and then all of a sudden I heard, that is making it seem like that would be right after Kaylee's going up and doing that.
I heard her scream, and she ran downstairs because she saw someone. That's
Also, what's interesting to me is that she doesn't say how Xana was up eating her DoorDash, right? And Xana was walking around because I saw her, I heard her. So if the door was closed, right? And she's assimilating because Kaylee's going to bed. She's going to go to bed, right? Because what I could see happening is if Ethan and Xana come home, maybe, I don't know, I would just think that Murphy would be sleeping, but okay, I heard them come home, so I'm going to go downstairs and see who it is. Oh, it's them, But she makes absolutely like no mention that it could potentially be Xana. And that just goes to the fact of like, when did Xana and Ethan come home? Because Bethany has no idea when they come home.
I'm pretty sure she said someone's here, and she screamed and just ran downstairs. And I called for her name, but I jumped up and locked my door because I was so scared. And then I heard someone in the bathroom, and I heard her crying, and I heard some guy say that you're gonna be okay, I'm gonna help you. And I kept calling her name, but she wasn't answering. And then I opened the door for a second, and I saw this guy, and he was not insanely tall, but he was wearing all black and like this mask, which is covering his forehead and his mouth. And I locked the door and I called, and I didn't know what to do.
This was at 4
a.m. Yes. Okay. And so then I just ran down.
You left here?
Yeah, I left my room down to the room. She's that one with the white blinds at the very bottom. I ran down there and we talked, and we just locked the door. We didn't think anything of it. We're like, nothing happens in Moscow, so we just like tried to go to bed. And then we woke up. And it was weird because none of our roommates were up, and we called all of them. They were not waking up, and so this is weird. So I called and to come over, and then that's when all this happened.
Okay, and so like, just none of that's true though. Dylan woke up way earlier. She's on social media. Bethany's up earlier. Bethany never uses her phone to call anybody. Nor text anybody or anything like that as far as the roommates go. And Dylan does say that the dog, Murphy started barking. Murphy started barking a lot. Man.
Who all lives here with you?
Me. That one right there.
There's Xana.
Xana is the girl in there.
Is the girl that lives this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. How do you spell her name?
Xana.
K-E?
Xana.
Xana. Okay.
Ethan is in there. He doesn't actually live here, but he's here like almost all the time.
There's a male that lives here, and
he doesn't actually live here. He's in the room with Xana, I believe.
He's in there right now.
But he doesn't live here. He's here a lot. And then there's Maddie, Mogan, and Kaylee up top. I don't know where they're at now.
Maddie.
Mogan. Maddie Mogan and
Maddie
Kaylee.
Mogan.
Yeah.
And there's two.
That's what I'm pretty sure she said. Someone's here, and she screamed and just ran downstairs. And I called for her name, but I jumped up and locked my door because I was so scared. And then I heard someone in the bathroom, and I heard her crying, and I heard some guy say that you're going to be okay, I'm going to help you. And I kept calling her name, but she wasn't answering. And then I opened the door for a second, and I saw this guy, and he was not insanely tall, but he's wearing all black and like this mask which is covering his forehead and his mouth.
Well,
Okay, so think about that. She says that she saw the guy when she opened up her door. Like, and that would have been like the first time. And so how does that change then to the fact that she opened up her door actually twice before then? And so on the third time, so like where would that come from? How does that God, we need two things here. How does that change? Like, how do you get someone to sit down and say, okay, how many times do you think you opened up the door? They're clearly going to be asking questions, and that's why it's important when the Blaker, Vicky, Gooch interview comes out here really soon that you pay attention to what questions are being asked. And I'm telling you, there's no way that you did not look at these phone records about the questions that are about to be asked. Okay. Dylan never said that she went to sleep and that she woke up, so that's a lie. For whatever reason they wanted to make it that way, why would you need to say that Dylan was sleeping from 2 to 4? Dylan never said that. Dylan, in fact, is right here saying that she was going to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning. The cops said that, not Dylan. Like, why would you do that? Unfucking believable to me. Like, that is just so wrong that you would do that to her. That's not what she said. It's just bad. It's horrible.
No issues? Okay, everybody got along? All right.
And then,
Murphy's the dog?
yeah.
Okay.
And then I went inside to go to bed, and she was still taking him out. And then I was in my bed, like, about to go to sleep, and Maddie just said that she lost Murphy. Like, she was, like, and was wondering if he was with me, and I just said no. And then I went to bed.
And what time do you think you fell asleep?
Maybe 2:30.
She says maybe 2:30 or 3. Well, Maddie calls her at 2:53.
Okay. What time did you wake up at all between 2 and...
I heard something like,
Is somebody cutting down a fucking tree? You guys hear that?
and then put a firecracker in the house. But I wasn't even really sure because I was kind of still asleep, so I wasn't sure if it was like real.
Sunday mornings.
So, I'm sorry, I had listened to a couple things at a time. Loud, you thought you saw a firecracker because of a quick flash?
Yeah, through like my door, but I was like still had to sleep, so I don't know if it was like real. I thought it was maybe a big dream.
Was it loud?
Okay. And then, did you ever like, pick up your phone to see what time it was? Or?
Oh, maybe I might have called her and asked her what was happening, because sometimes we hear things and I'll call her and be like, oh, what was happening? She's just peeping.
Okay.
Do you guys recognize all these vehicles in here?
Yeah. I tried to call Maddie and Ethan and Xana and all them at like 4:20.
So you called.
I tried to call Maddie and Ethan and Xana and all them at like 4:20.
So you called
4:20.
I tried to call all of them.
Maddie?
Answering, but
At what time?
4:30 and 4:22.
4:22.
And then 4:21.
Okay.
And then Ethan at 4:22. And then Kaylee at 4:31.
Okay.
And then Ethan at 4:22. And 4:22.
Maddie?
Answering, but
At what time?
4:30 and 4:22. And then 4:21.
Okay.
And then Ethan at 4:22. And then Kaylee at 4:31. I thought they were close.
4:31.
Yeah.
So no answer, and then did you go to sleep after that?
Yeah, I just kind of fell asleep again. I was like half awake.
Okay. And then what throughout your day did you got up at what time today?
I like woke up because my jaw was feeling really bad. I took some Advil at like 6 or 7, and then I just went back to bed. So I figured no one would be up anyways. And then I didn't wake up until we called you guys.
Okay.
Oh boy. I didn't wake up
Awesome.
until
Okay.
And then this is just one of my friends. I'm sitting over there. I was just up.
Oh, okay. All female.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So you guys watching Vampire Diaries out in this the second level? Okay. And then for how long?
I don't know. And then Maddie and Taylor came home from the club. And then we all hung out in Taylor's room for a little.
So Maddie and Kaylee were at the club.
Yeah.
You know how long they were there? Probably till closing at least.
I don't know. They went to drug truck afterwards.
Drug truck. Okay. And then they came home at about what time? It's okay. You're doing great.
Two.
So they did get home at 2.
Yes.
How do you know that?
I just have a picture of Taylor's room with Murphy.
Okay. Then what happened after that?
And then me and Maddie put out Murphy, and then
Murphy's the dog.
yeah, and then I went inside to go to bed, and she was still taking him out. And then I was in my bed, like about to go to sleep, and Maddie just said that she lost Murphy. Like she was like, and was wondering if he was with me, and I just said no. And then I went to bed.
And what time do you think you fell asleep?
Maybe 2:30.
Okay. What time did you wake up at all between 2 and...
I heard something like,
Is somebody cutting down a fucking tree? You guys hear that noise? I'm sorry, but it is November 13th. What is that? It's November
loud and would be like bark. And usually like she barks at things. And then I thought I saw like a firecracker, so I thought someone maybe was just drunk and like put a firecracker in the house. But I wasn't even really sure because I was kind of still asleep, so I wasn't sure if it was like real.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I had listening to a couple things at a time. Loud, you thought you saw a firecracker because of a quick flash?
Yeah, through like my door, but I was like still half asleep, so I don't know if it was like real. I thought it was maybe true.
Was it loud?
Okay. And then did you ever like, pick up your phone to see what time that was?
Oh, maybe I might have called her and asked her what was happening because sometimes.
So then she's like, and then I would have maybe called Dylan because I sometimes will call her, ask her what the hell's happening, which makes sense. Okay, so that would be the 419 call. All right. And I think what Ann Taylor was looking at is that if Bethany is calling Dylan to alert her to something, okay, because of whatever happened down right by where her room is, and if the person would have like actually left then, okay, and is down by her room at just before 419 and 7 seconds when she called, then it's like then Dylan couldn't have saw what she's saying she saw, right? Because which is going to go hand in hand with like the blood that would be on the railing that's heading down, and it actually goes hand in hand with, if you look on the 1112 cameras, there is somebody that is getting into a vehicle and turning the lights on down by on the corner of Taylor and King. And that happens actually before the car that's speeding away. I just cannot believe there wasn't a question. Well, we're going to find out if there was, is to asking Dylan what set her, like, where does Bethany's phone call come into play? And Bethany's phone call is at 4, like, does that happen way after all of this stuff? Like, where are you placing Bethany's phone call in what your version of events is? Does Bethany's phone call come 20 minutes later? Because if she's saying this is happening between 4 and 4:10, right? Bethany's phone call's at 4:19. And this is why I think the cops had to get this timeline of, could this crime have happened between 4:16 and 51 seconds and 4:20 and 20 seconds? Because that's the window that you have based on these girls', like, when you break it all down, that's what you're left with. Because you need Dylan to have seen the masked man. That has to be before 4:20 and 20 seconds. No doubt about it. And I just think that the timeline with people walking around and their steps and stuff, that has to clash as well. And that's why they did the test run. When I say they, Idaho State Police did a test run to say that this happened and could have happened. So then the question would be, is what was the person doing that drove in and did the 3-point turn? It's all the same car. So it's Brian. He goes and he parks, right? But he really truly parked in front of the house, right? And so and that would be ignoring all logic that you actually are calling because the dog is barking, which is why I would call. I'd be calling because of the dog barking. The dog starts barking at 4:16 and 51 seconds. The dog is continuing to bark and bark and bark and bark and bark and bark. So the question is how are you able to go to sleep with the dog barking? How come there's no talk about, well, hey, the dog continues to bark almost to 5 o'clock in the morning. How are you guys able to go to sleep while the dog is barking? If the dog doesn't stop barking, right? So just because they get back into each other's rooms and down there at 4, everything is done off of their phones at 4:37 a.m. And so what time does the dog stop barking? And wouldn't it be pretty convenient if you're not playing the 1112 camera? You'd want to continue to keep getting the camera from 1112 all the way until that dog stops barking, right? So you can say, okay, here's the time when the dog stops barking. And you'd want to be like time stamping that, right? Because Ann Taylor's argument is that the dog stops barking because somebody brought in the dog and somebody was with the dog to settle the dog down. Or took the dog away. I mean, right? And I just don't think I think people aren't putting enough stock into that. And I'd be weighing a lot of evidence. Like that'd be a lot of stock would go in that for me, because how do you ever get a dog to stop barking? That's barking like that. How do the dog just stops barking? these people that were interviewed said that the dog was barking from like 4 to 4:45, from like 4 to 5. The one kid said the dog started barking at 4:17 and was barking all the way until 5 o'clock in the morning. These are people that were being interviewed. So, all right, guys. Does more stock need to go into then the crimes beginning at 4:16 and 51 seconds? And that would be the beginning of the barking for Murphy. And is that why the police went and said, hey, we have to do a run through. We got to, where is it? That would mean that you're committing all of the crimes between 4:16 and 52 seconds and leaving at 4:20 and about 20 seconds. So then being in the car to drive away. And that's what they needed to prove, that it was possible to do that. And then that means that Dylan would have had to see the masked person between 4:19 and 10 seconds to 4:20 and 20 seconds. That's her only window. And that doesn't make sense with what her opening the door now 3 times and seeing it on the 3rd time. There you go. That's the time frame to see the masked man. The only time frame. That I think is believable. And that would require the opening of the door 3 times during that time frame. And I have no idea why they needed to add all that in. You know, we'll find out though, because her interviews are coming. And I think that you need to put more stock into how these questions were asked and what questions weren't asked. And that Bethany and Dylan can't answer questions that aren't asked of them. You know, and so it's left with investigators putting their own twist on whatever. But if you want to know something, you just ask that question. You don't. But if you don't want somebody to answer a question, you don't ask it, because it would fuck shit up, you know? And I can tell you that Moscow Police Department has okayed to get those interviews. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. Appreciate you. They didn't give a shit about this car. That car. They didn't give a shit that it was that Jack Showalter had a black BMW. And that car was allegedly white and resembling a white Elantra. Okay. But yet they were stalking down Jack Showalter, who had a black BMW. Wow. Wow is all I have to say. And then they wanted Maddie's Cars Infotainment Center. I think that the police wanted to see if Maddie's car was drove up out of there, because both Dylan nor Bethany had a car. And would a common sense person grab keys and get into a car and get the fuck up out of there? And could that potentially be the 4:20 and 42-second car driving off and away? Dude, that's what I would have done. That's what I would have done. I would have got the hell out of there, right? I would have gotten the hell out of there. Peace out. Peace out. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I love people that think about things, and if you break it all down by the evidence, is truly what the girls are saying possible? When would you have ever seen the masked man? How did everything get put in motion? Could this really have started at 4 or 4:10? Why does Dylan even think that? If she's actually has her phone and looking at her phone, she sees that everything started at 4:19 with the call from Bethany to her. So that tells me that she in her mind knows that what she saw happen and what was going down was happening before 4:19. Okay. Which then is so interesting because the dog does not start barking until almost 4:17, you know? So think about all of that. And when you think about all of that, this couldn't have started at 4 or 4:10 because Murphy is not going to be silent. I don't buy that. Thank you. Peace out.